this place find yourself a friend. Lay down your defenses and fears. You're welcome here. Yes, you're welcome here. Yes, you're welcome here.
Oh, good afternoon. Sorry, I'm live now. I'm Reverend Dave Thompson. I'd like to welcome you to our Civil Human Bible study. So I'm a civil human minister and servant, which basically means that I offer my work and spend all of my time working on building human peace and common ground. So it's in that effort that I'm looking at my own spiritual heritage, to look at the teachings of Jesus, which is the teachings I come from, to try to find those things that I feel are universally applicable to all humans, regardless of our different faiths, our different politics, or even our different lifestyles. Right now we're in the book of Matthew and we're walking through it, which is an account of the life of Jesus. It's actually the first book in the New Testament, which is the section that focuses primarily on Jesus and everything after that historically. And right now in the story, we're at the very end of Jesus' story, talking about the crucifixion. He's now passed away. He's given up his ghost, as they say. And now we're going to have a really beautiful story of Joseph of Arimathea and Mary, and a couple different Marys actually, who are going to come and take care of the body. And I want to highlight some of this because this is a beautiful message of devotion and dignity that I think right now we really need to see as human beings. Let's go ahead and jump into the passage and read that. It's Matthew chapter 27, verses 57 through 61. Starting with verse 57. Now when evening had come, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had become a disciple of Jesus. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body be given to him. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in clean linen cloth and laid it in his new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock. And he rolled a large stone against the door of the tomb and departed. And Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary sitting opposite the tomb. It doesn't seem like there's much said there, but there's a lot that just happened, and a lot of cultural implications, especially for these individuals who are taking care of Jesus's entombment or burial, essentially. And I want to walk through what's really happening here and what it really would have meant to these people, and especially to the readers of this story when Matthew wrote this in the later part of the first century. One of the most important parts of understanding this document, and I want to just back up a little bit. There are many people who maybe see this particular document, the Bible, or the book of Matthew, for instance, as a fable or a myth, or something that's a good story. But I do want to point out that these are historical records, that this person really lived, that there was really a Pilate, that there was really a crucifixion, and that it has been attested to outside of just this particular written document. I just want to bring that to people's attention. Obviously, the miraculous claims that we're going to see coming up, especially with the resurrection, we'll have to deal personally with to decide what we want to do with it. But I felt it necessary to just make sure that we understood that this is the story of a human being who did something phenomenal, and the people around him did something great as well. And I want to draw from this story today and talk about devotion and talk about love and how it can be shown in our society today. Let's walk through the passage and talk about what's going on here. So we have this guy, Joseph of Arimathea. Arimathea is just another location, and Joseph is a fairly common name in the Jewish community. And so the reason why they title him Joseph of Arimathea is because there's so many Josephs. It's kind of like in America where we have the word Joe. It's pretty common. So they assigned essentially a location to him. And what we know about Joseph of Arimathea is that he's a rich man. We know that from Matthew's account. But also in other accounts in this Bible about Jesus, we learn that he's a member of the Sanhedrin, which is the highest council and sort of like the Supreme Court and the Congress and Senate all together. So Joseph is a very, very important person in this society, and no doubt was known by pretty much everybody in that society. And so we have this individual, and Matthew describes him as becoming a disciple of Jesus, and disciple just simply meaning the student of Jesus. So this very important and very significant person in society had become a follower of the teachings of Jesus and of the methodology of Jesus. And so when Jesus is put to death, we've walked through the crucifixion and the brutality of understanding that part of our human nature, but also being able to look at the story of Jesus and see the beauty of the kinds of devotion and bravery and courage that is also in us as humans. And now we get to see a different level altogether. Joseph is coming out, and he comes before Pilate, who is the Roman, basically designated leader for this area, governor from Rome. And he tells Pilate, I want the body, give me the body. And so Pilate, obliges him and orders that given to him. I want to point something out here that may go unnoticed. It was a significant request for Joseph to make. I want to just point out the fact he's a member of the Sanhedrin, this Jewish council. And so to be a member of this council meant that, generally speaking, you weren't supposed to favor Rome, and you certainly weren't supposed to be interacting with them. And especially since it was the Sanhedrin themselves who ordered Jesus' death, the fact that now one of the members is coming to Pilate to take care of the body is significant. Joseph was putting his reputation, his job, his security, his following, everything on the line by asking for this favor from Pilate. So Pilate gives him the body, and then we have this really beautiful picture of Joseph who takes the body of Jesus and washes it, cleans it, wraps it with a linen, clean linen, which is essentially what we're being told here is that Joseph treated him like royalty. Joseph treated him like somebody who needed to be buried with dignity and needed to be buried with respect. Not only that, but Joseph actually gives up his own tomb to Jesus and puts him in this tomb. So it was pretty commonplace for those who were poor and those who didn't have any means to be buried in shallow graves, and essentially the animals would be left to take the bodies. And generally speaking, if Jesus were left to just by himself, then that's exactly what would have happened to Jesus. But the fact that Joseph takes him on is important. And these individuals who had a lot of wealth would generally create tombs for themselves. So they would find a big rock or a space that was sort of like a really nice funeral home and memorial area, and they would have somebody carve out of the stone a place inside with a bed where they could lay the body. This was going to be Joseph's place. He gives it to Jesus, puts him in the tomb, wraps him up with beautiful linen cloths, and gives respect to the body. And then he rolls a big stone in front of it. This is just the common practice, and wanted to secure the area just in case somebody was going to come and rob it. So that was important to him. And then we have this really interesting side note that Matthew gives us. Here he says that Mary Magdalene and Mary, another Mary, were sitting opposite watching this happen. There's a reason that Matthew points this out. And there's a reason that Matthew pointed out that Mary and Simone and this other Mary were also at the crucifixion of Jesus. Out of all the people that followed Jesus, out of all of the ones who were supposed to be his supporters and who declared to him in front of his face that they would never deny him, out of all of those people, it's the women who held their ground. It's the women who stood up. It's the women who actually did something about it. And I think Matthew is making a point of this, especially in this culture, to remember that there's a very different way that genders are looked at in this ancient society. Women have a different place in society than men do. And so for Matthew to point this out, he's making a very clear point to this society that women were the ones who took care of things, who made it happen. And I absolutely love that about the scriptures and about this account of Jesus. And it warms my heart to see Matthew giving credit where credit is due. So I want to close out today talking about devotion and love, and what it looks like. I know in our society right now, it's pretty tough to find love and to find care and concern. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of name calling. There's a lot of dominance on who's going to win and who's going to lose. And those who lose are destroyed. Those who win are powerful and lorded over others. In amidst all of that, I really appreciate this story. I really appreciate seeing an individual who is wealthy, not that that's significant or important, and that he's part of the Sanhedrin, not because wealth or power are the things that we search after, but because it was a great risk for him. It meant that he was putting everything on the line to do what he did. And it meant that he had a great deal of devotion to Jesus. It's likely that Joseph of Arimathea was the place where they had the Last Supper. It hosted in Jerusalem the night before Jesus was taken by the religious leaders. This individual was devoted to Jesus in such a way that he went out of his way not only to get the body and put his job and his reputation at risk, but also to take care of the body, which is not something that the Sanhedrin would have done. It would have made him unclean as a leader in society to touch or to handle a dead body. And it meant that he was putting himself in a precarious position to do that. But he knew nobody else was going to do it, and so he stepped up and did it. And I love that about him. And he even took the time to clean Jesus. He didn't just put him in a tomb. He took care of him. He wanted Jesus to have dignity in the way that he was. And that's where I want to leave off today. I know as I've been trying to think about how to conduct myself right now, especially when it comes to the church, who has been, coming from my own personal background, Pentecostal, evangelical, conservative, holiness-driven, to see these individuals look for power and to look for money and wealth as the driving force behind what they see as good and godly and right has been difficult for me, as it has been difficult for many. And even those who are not Christian or not even religious, frustrated that these individuals would do that, when those of us who have actually read the story of Jesus know that that's not at all what he stood for. So it's easy to lash out. It's easy to be frustrated. It's easy to call names. It's easy to berate individuals, to put them down. But I think now in our society, one of the most important things that we can do is to provide dignity and devotion to these virtues, to forgive, to be kind, to exercise power only as much as we need to get the job done, and to not exude it and hurt other people, to be humble, and to be peacemakers. Virtues is the only way that we as a society are going to be able to move forward without further fighting, without creating war, without creating more conflict. It's just the reality of life. And I love this story, especially. It's just been really, it spoke to me a lot as a human being, to see individuals, regardless of everything that had happened, showed devotion and love, even when it cost them probably everything. I might encourage you, as we go about the rest of our day, thinking about this story, to maybe look at individuals that are experiencing hardship from others who are being berated or yelled at or cursed at, and there are the difference between them becoming angry or learning. Thank you for this Bible study today. I really appreciate it. And I would love it to hear your concerns, your thoughts, and reflections in the comments below the video. I want you to know, and this is really important to me, even though I close it every time on this study this way, I mean it. And this is the American Sign Language sign for I love you. And I hope you choose to love yourself. It's the only love in this world that we have any control over. I invite you to join me as we go about the rest of our day, loving those around us the same way. Thank you.